Hey everybody, going to take a minute here and show you one of my correspondence games that just finished, and it had a pretty interesting opening, uh, which started off fairly normal. I believe this is called the Philidor Defense. Play D4 here, and he does this offbeat thing, F6 here, which I'm convinced, I haven't looked anything up yet, but I'm convinced it's completely a complete disaster. I'll look it up here in a bit. But I think recapturing on e5 with the f6 pawn is probably a total meltdown. But we'll look it up here in just a bit. I think that his opening is a disaster and is probably what leads to the problem. But anyway, I capture on e5 here, and the goal here is to get the queen over to h5 while there's a crippled diagonal and his knight is not on f6 yet. So also the f7 square is attacked twice, and that's a mating square. He has no way to interpose on that diagonal from h5 over to e8, this diagonal. And I mean, he can interpose the pawn here, but you just take it. So obviously that diagonal is very dangerous for him. If he were to play king e7 here instead of king d7, which he did play, king e7 I believe leads to mate in 2 after this. For instance, this is checkmate. Or the only other option here I believe is this, which was also checkmate. So king e7 right here loses, so he realized that and played king d7. Now king d7, I had looked at a bunch of lines, and I don't think anything really leads to anything other than getting another piece into the battle. And the quickest way to do that is knight c3. I also looked at bishop e3, but decided on knight c3. Didn't really know which one is best, but I'll look it up and see what computers tend to think there. But I have a feeling it's going to be knight c3 just because it's going to get to the center a little quicker and control some key squares coming up here. So he plays, probably a pretty decent move attacking the queen, but it's e5 is hanging here. I don't really know what he could do to defend against it, but um, obviously getting in here with queen takes e5 is going to threaten checkmate again on e6. Same checkmate. He found sort of an interesting way to defend it, but I don't like it. I was a little worried about what I was going to do if he played queen e7. Which I'll look up once again with computers. But what do I do here? I wasn't really sure. There isn't anything that immediately jumps out at me. Just real quick, bishop c5. You can interpose a pawn. Let's see what bishop e5 does. Then we're just going to come back here. And I don't know what I do next. Castle? I'm just going to lose my bishop at that point. So, these are the kind of things I was looking at which seem a bit silly. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to do here. I was a little worried that he was going to do that and I was going to have to really dig in. But I just waited a little bit to see what he actually did play, which I think was a pretty large mistake. He played bishop d6. Bishop d6 defends against the checkmate, immediate checkmate threat, but also attacks the queen, so he thinks he's developing with some tempo here. But I think what it does is it allows me to bring his king into the center of the board instead of allowing it to come back to d8 or e8, which would have been disastrous for me, or at least would have been a very difficult something very difficult for me to deal with. So he brings his king, or he's going to get his king brought to c6 after I play queen e6. Uh, the the bishop is in the way of the checkmate now because of this. The c6 square is a flight square. So bringing the king out into the center of the board is definitely something I want to do. I need to keep him there. One of the things that was on my mind was maybe bringing it back from back into b6 or b7 here by playing b6 eventually, and that would have worked okay actually coming up right here. I found a nice little line here with bishop e3. I'm actually developing that with tempo, even though it looks like my queen is hanging. Bishop e3 actually threatens checkmate on b5 if the queen is taken by the bishop. So bishop takes e6 and bishop b5 is checkmate. So that is developing with tempo, and he sees that, doesn't take the queen, and he's preventing bishop b5 checkmate with a6. However, this leads to a mate in two also. Uh, what I played here was bishop d5. This is just a simple mate in two. He has to recapture with the knight. Now, don't take with the queen because that allows d7 to be a flight square. You capture with the pawn, keeping all of the squares covered, and that's checkmate. So, I thought it was an interesting game just because of the kind of disaster that the opening led to. However, another part I thought was interesting is if he could have defended just a little more tightly right here. I think one of the critical mistakes was, I think there were probably three critical mistakes in the game. Two of them in the opening and then bishop d6. One of them in the opening was f6 and the other was f takes e5. Both were monumentally weakening moves, and then d6 is the disastrous move. Or bishop d6, excuse me, is the disastrous move. So if you guys see any interesting lines in here, especially here's a spot that I'd like to maybe explore, is something like this. If you can see any lines where white has a good continuation, because honestly I was a bit worried. Actually, I'm looking, no, I can't do that either. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and study the board right now on the video, but if you guys have any thoughts as to what white should do in continuation in this line, I'd love to hear them. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.